I got this Bible on me. I ain't seeking no title, homie. I don't care about the fame, I do not care if I go viral, homie. I ain't got no side woman. I got this wedding ring on. Tell me what you gon' do when you face the judge and everything gone. Evil is always approaching, trying to come get you and set in your house. Satan is trying to come get you, he wants you to give up inside of these trials. I reach for the Father, I know that he's able. Yes, there's power inside, there's power in mind. Better submit to the Father, without his protection, it will come devour your mind. I can see bullets straight flying around. You could be in the wrong place at the wrong hour, the presence and the Father. You don't ever want to fall out. I'm talking about that strong tower, that safe place. Let your voice be loud. The Alpha, Omega, the author of forever. Yeah, going on down this road. I just wanna be with the King. Going on down this road. Everything ain't what it seems. Let him get down to the root. I just wanna bear fruit with the Holy One, the only one. You will never see a real soldier run. I'm floating in Jehovah's love. I got this Bible on me. I ain't seeking no title, homie. I don't care about the fame. I do not care if I go viral, homie. I ain't got no side woman. I got this wedding ring on. Tell me what you gon' do when you face the judge and everything gone.
How's it going, church, saints of God? Welcome to another episode of Black Hebrew Israelism Critiqued. This is your brother Luis once again, and today we're going to be taking a look at Deuteronomy 28:68. I covered it partially in another video, but today we're going to take a quick look, since it doesn't take much to go ahead and exegete the verse properly. So let's do this, man. Follow me. Let's go to the verse itself, right? Here we go, Deuteronomy 28:68, right? With the underlying Hebrew text. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again, right? Now I gotta say that I'm doing this because I've seen that the argument that these Black Hebrew Israelites promote, and that is that, for example, the word to be sold, right? They make it seem like these, like the verse is saying that slaves were sold, and yet there would be nobody to buy them back, right? Or to redeem them once they were sold, right? And we're going to take a look at that word for sold and what it really means, and we're also going to take a look at the word to buy, which is kana, right? But I want to take you to something here first. So let's read it again. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again, right? With ships by the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more. Right, so I want to pause right there and look at that. So there was a time and a place where the Most High told these people that you will not go back that way, right? So there was a time and a place. So where did he say that? Where was this at, right? And I'm doing this so that we can distinguish between a state of being, which is in bondage, and a place, which is Egypt. The Black Hebrew Israelism or Black Hebrew Israelites say or presuppose that this is a state of being, which is in bondage, and not a literal place, which is Egypt. But we're going to take a look and see that this is not a state of being, but it's an actual place, right? And Deuteronomy 17:16 is where we see where they were brought out and God promises them. This is what he says, right? Let's go there. So Deuteronomy 17:16, right? It says, but he shall not multiply horses to himself, nor cause the people to return to Egypt, right? To the end that he should multiply horses, for as much as the Lord hath said unto you, ye shall henceforth return no more that way, right? So clearly we see that Egypt is not a state of being, and that way is actually referring to a place, right? So here he tells them that you will not return to Egypt, not a state of being, but to Egypt. How do we know this? By the end of the verse, the context. And you shall no more return that way. Now it cannot be a state of being due to the fact that the Most High knew that these people would be in captivity, because he told Moses to write a song reminding them of these things that were to come upon them once they broke the covenant. What did he say? Moses, you will die, and upon your death these people will turn into whoredom, they will commit adultery, they will break my covenant. So it cannot be a state of being, but a place, here in Deuteronomy 17:16, right? And when this is cited in Deuteronomy 28:68, right? So let's see it again, right? And the Lord shall bring thee unto Egypt again with ships by the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more. What were they not going to see anymore? We just read it. Egypt, a place, not a state of being. So here, Deuteronomy 28:68 cites Deuteronomy 17:16 about a place, a way that they were not going to see anymore, right? So it can't be a state of being, which is in bondage, but rather a place, right? So now that we got that out the way, let's keep going. That thou shalt not see again, right? Again, right? And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen. So let's take a look at this word sold, which is MKR, right? Here the Hebrew Israelites say, well, see, it's in the past tense, sold. So they were sold, and yet there won't be nobody to buy them back or to redeem them, right? Wrong. The word here denotes or connotes or describes merchandise. They will be displayed to be sold. They would be as merchandise. They would be placed for sale, but no one would buy them. So let's take a look at the word here. We're looking at the Theological Workbook of the Old Testament, right? And I scroll down to where I wanted to read, but I'll take you up to the so you can see the root and the derivatives of this word, right? Which is not this one. That's the other one we're going to see in a minute. Let's go here. It is this one, right? So here we have the root, which is makar or sell, and its derivatives, right? Let's take a look about what it describes, what it sees, what it teaches, right? Let's take a look here. Let's start from here. Like, selling fellow Israelites into slavery was prohibited, right? They could, however, sell themselves, an example, their services and work, but their servitude was terminated in the 7th year and in the year of Jubilee, right? So this is well known. Let's keep going. So here we go. The Lord sold his people into the power of their enemies when he became displeased with them, right? So here the Lord, the Most High, gave them away for nothing. The Lord did not, there wasn't a transaction between him and a foreign pagan heathen nation for something of value. When you buy something or purchase something, there's an exchange done. You're giving something of value, or you can receive something of value. When the Lord gave them up to their enemies, there was no transaction. There was no monetary transaction. He just gave them away. He allowed other countries to come in and ravish the monarchy, right? Take them into captivity, right? And here we see Deuteronomy 28:68 being quoted, right? So the Lord sold his people into the power of their enemies when he became displeased with them. Actually, the Israelites sold themselves for nothing, right? And here we go. Isaiah 50 verse 1 is quoted. Thus saith the Lord, where is the bill of your mother's divorcement whom I put away? Or which of my creditors is it to whom I have sold you? Right? Behold, for your iniquities have you sold yourselves. So your iniquities sold you. You were sold, and it was your iniquities that sold you. You know what I mean? Like, it's just amazing. And here we go. But God would yet redeem them without money. So here we have Isaiah 52:3 to make it more clear. Okay? For thus saith the Lord, you have sold yourselves for naught, and you shall be redeemed without money, or for naught, right? So this is clear, man. This is clear that the word means to be offered up as merchandise and to be sold, right? To be sold, okay? Now let's take a look here. Before we go and see the word for buy you, or kone, right? let's go take a look at something that that I found here. Where is it? Let's see. Okay, right here, right? This guy, the name of the book is Studies on Slavery by John Fletcher, right? Studies on Slavery by John Fletcher. And in page 192 to 193, he quotes this verse, Deuteronomy 28:68, right? He says, so let's see, thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you, right? He says, ye shall be sold. An example, be exposed to sell, or expose yourselves to sell, right? As the word denotes, may be rendered. So here you see that it is an expression of to be put up for sale. You will be sold, right? Now, I want you guys to realize something. These people were already in captivity. In order for a slave owner to sell a slave, they are already a slave. So they were captives already. When they were taken captive, they were taken captive by force. Nobody bought them. So they were already slaves. Now, the slave owners, in order to make money, they would sell them in Hadrian's market, or what was the other voice? The other word for that market, I forgot. But they were to be sold in that market. They were to be offered for sale in that market. So this word, to be sold, right? And there you shall be sold, and there you should be offered for sale, right? That's what the word is denoting, right? So when these black Hebrew Israelites try to point to the fact that they were already sold, past tense, and yet no one would buy them, that's false. That is false, man. That is false, right? So now let's take a look at the word for buy you, right? And no man shall buy you, which is kone, right? Kone. Now I had it over here, so I'll just go back, right? And here it is, or kana, right? It's I, or get, or acquire, or create. And here it's derivatives, right? So let's take a look here. Check this out. The verb kana is the usual word for buying something, right? Buying something. Commercial transactions were accomplished in several ways, right? So here it is. The purchaser symbolizing forfeiture of the hereditary right of redemption. But let's take a look here. So let's take a look at slavery, right? Slavery was allowed in Israel, right? Under certain conditions, right? Only Israelites could be true slaves. Only non-Israelites could be true slaves. Excuse me. An example, property of an Israelite. All Jews were brothers and servants. Hence, they could not own one another. If because of poverty or punishment or for theft, a Jew went into bondage, he was to be treated as a hired servant. He could be redeemed. Here, they were sold, yet they could be redeemed or bought back, right? Now, you don't see this meaning or example in Deuteronomy 28:68, right? You don't see that meaning, and we're going to take a look at some commentary, and you'll see, right? So here it's if no, like for example, so he could be redeemed either by a kinsman, or if he prospered by himself. So he can purchase his own what's it called, his own freedom, or a former brethren, right? Either a cousin, a brother, or whoever, a Jewish, somebody of his own kin could redeem him or buy him back, right? So here redeem is in the sense of being bought back, not in the sense of buying or purchasing something, but to buy back something that was previously yours, right? In Deuteronomy 28:68, it's not in the sense of buying back something that was previously yours, but it is to sell something, and nobody would buy you, right? Nobody would buy you. So the word redeem, the word kana has various definitions, and redeem is one of it. But the proper definition is applied according to the context of the word, around it, right? So let's keep going. If no redemption was forthcoming, he would be set free the 7th year or the 50th year. Kinsmen were to buy back enslaved relatives or redeem. That's perfect. These injunctions were virtually established the abolition of slavery for Jews, right? So now let's keep going. Excuse me. Press the wrong button here. Okay. Sorry, gotta go down. Okay, here we go. In view of the above discussion, where we just read, it is significant that God, who redeemed Israel, right, from Egypt, promised to bring unrepentant Israel back to Egypt to be sold as bondsmen. But no one would purchase them, right? So they use the perfect word here, or to buy or to purchase. They can't use redeem because it's not like he was going to sell them and then it's not like they were sold already and then he was going to redeem them or buy them back. No, he was going to send them to Egypt and offer them up to be sold. But nobody would purchase them, right? They can't. The black Hebrew Israelites wants to force the word redeemed or buy them back after they've been sold, when that's totally not what's being said or portrayed in that verse, right? And they even cite Deuteronomy 28:68, right? However, God himself would purchase them out of the exile, right? Isaiah 11:11, we see the example there. And the second time, and the Lord shall set his hand again a second time to recover, right, the remnant of his people, right? So as you can see, yes, there is a sense of redeeming under the word kana, right? So there's various definitions to this word, as we've seen from its derivatives, because of its root. But the right definition is applied according to the context that the verse is surrounding. Deuteronomy 28:68 clearly says they would be offered to be sold, right? Not that they were sold and yet nobody would buy them back, but they would be offered as merchandise. They would be displayed to be sold, being captives already, and yet no one would buy them, right? So they're being sold as slaves to other slave owners, right? And no one would buy them. So even if you want to put the word redeem, it does not fit to buy back, because if they were to be bought back, it had to be a fellow kinsman. If they wanted to be taken out of slavery, it had to be by fellow kinsmen, right, or by God himself. But the word, the verse here in its proper context, it's that God would send them back that way, which is not a state of being which is in bondage, but being that they're already in bondage, they would be taken as bondswomen, because they were already in bondage, and bondsman, and they would be displayed as merchandise to be sold, and yet no one would buy them. So the word the sense of being bought back or redeemed does not fit. That's why the proper way to say is either to buy and no one would buy you, or no one would purchase you, right? Now let's take a look. I hope I'm making myself clear. So let's take a look at something interesting that I found here. So we've seen here that book that I mentioned earlier. Let's see what else, right? Let's see. Ye shall be sold or be exposed to sell, or expose yourselves to sell, as the word may be rendered. They were vagrants and wished to become slaves, that they might be provided with the necessaries of life. Clark's commentary. Here, let's see what Josephus says. The markets were overstocked with them, says Josephus. They were sold with their wives and children at the lowest price, there being many to be sold and few purchasers, not few redeemers, but few purchasers. Right? Now, Hegesippus also says, there were many captives offered for sale. See, they were already captive. They were already in bondage. But few buyers. because the Romans disdained to take the Jews for slaves, and there were not Jews remaining to redeem their countrymen. Right. So here we see that even if how can I say this? It says there because Jerusalem fell, and most of the Jews were most of the Jews were killed. The rest were put in bondage, right? And what could not be those that could not be sold were sent to Egypt, right, to work the mines down there, right? There weren't any Jews remaining, anybody of their kinsmen, to buy them back, to take them out of bondage, or to redeem them. This is what Hegesippus is saying. So he puts the distinction clear. He makes a clear distinction. He makes it so clear that they were offered up to be sold, and yet nobody would buy them because there were few buyers, and there were little Jews remaining to redeem them, to not to purchase them or to buy them, but to buy them back, to redeem them from out of bondage, to take them out of bondage, right? Let's see. When Jerusalem was taken by Titus, of the captives who were sent into Egypt, those under 17 were sold. But so little care was taken of them that 11,000 of them perished for want, right? Let's see what Jerome says. After their last overthrow by Adrian, many thousands of them were sold. And those who could not be sold were transported into Egypt and perished by shipwreck and famine, or were massacred by the inhabitants, right? Let's see. A similar condition happened to the Jews in Spain when, under the reign of Ferdinand and Isabella, they were driven out of the kingdom, concerning which Abarbanel, a Jewish writer, says 300,000 young and old women and children, of whom he was one, not knowing where to go, left on foot in one day. Some became a prey, some perished by famine, some by pestilence, some committed themselves to the sea, but were sold for slaves when they came to any cost. Many were drowned and burned in the ships which were set on fire. In short, all suffered the punishment of God the Avenger, right? And it keeps going, but that's all I really wanted to show you there. I can show you one other thing here. This Princeton article, an article from Princeton, right? It says here, the Jewish wars of AD 66 and 73 and the Second Revolt in the early second century, which 132 to 135, occupy a prominent position in the historiographical tradition. Josephus gives a total of 97,000 enslavements for the former, right, which is for AD 66 to 73, and the latter, which is 132, 135, permitted Jewish captives to be sold for the price of horses, right? So there you go. There you more of this here, historical information that can't be denied. Now let's go back, man. Let's go back. Let me take this underlying text here. So it's plain and simple. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again, right? Not a state of being, but an actual place. Why? Because he goes on to say, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more. What shall they see no more? We already talked about this, and we are creatures of repetition, as Sam Shamoon likes to say. So I like to repeat this. So this is not referring to a state of being, but an actual place, because that place we saw in Deuteronomy 17:16 was actually Egypt, from where they were coming from. So he said, you will no longer see that. You will no longer go back that way, which was not a state of being, but an actual place where they were in bondage. And it says, and there you shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. There you shall be, like we said, you will be offered to be sold. You will be displayed as merchandise unto your enemies, for bondmen and bondwomen, for slaves, as slaves, for slaves, to slaves, whatever. And no man shall buy you. No man shall buy you back. No. No man shall redeem you. No. But no man shall purchase you or buy you or offer something of value in exchange for you, because they didn't see you as value, as we just read in the commentary there. But let's take a look at the Targums, man. I went ahead and I searched some of these Targums, and let me see, make sure I'm still good. Yep. So let's go to Targum Jonathan. His commentary on Deuteronomy 28:68. Right, here we go. And the word of the Lord will bring you captive to Mizraim, which is Egypt, in ships, right? So we know that this is not a state of being, because here we see an actual ships, an actual object being referenced. So we can't take this word Mizraim out of context and somehow make it seem, make it a state of being instead of an actual place, right? Through the sea, it even says through the sea, right? Of Suf, which I believe it's the Dead Sea, by the way you passed over, of which I said to you, no more shall you see it, and there will you be sold to your enemies. See, there you will be sold to your enemies at the beginning for a dear price as artificers, and afterward at a cheap price as servants and handmaids, until you be worthless and be consigned to unpriced labor. And there be none who will take you, right? And there will be none who will buy you back or redeem you. None. And there be none who will take you. So here we see Targum Jonathan on Deuteronomy 28:68. Let's go to Rashi. What does Rashi say on Deuteronomy 28:68, right? So it starts with, let's go back. Yeah. So it says, and the Lord will bring thee into Egypt again, right? The latter word means in ships. He will bring you again into captivity to Egypt in ships, right? So here you see that it's a literal place. It's not just a state of being, because it's using a little ship and a little sea where that you will be traveled through to be taken back to Egypt, as we've seen in Targum Jonathan. He goes on to say, means you will seek to be sold to them for slaves and handmaids. You will offer yourselves for slaves, or be offered. And it says, and no man will buy you, because they will pass upon you the doom of death and extermination. So here we see Rashi, that there's nothing about being redeemed or bought back, taken out of slavery, but you're already captive. You were captured in the siege. You're being offered as merchandise, and yet they will pass upon you the doom of death and extermination, because nobody will buy you. No man will buy you, right? Let's see what Ibn Ezra on Deuteronomy 28:68 says, right? And these are Jewish commentators, you know, Hebrews themselves, that offer an exegesis on this verse. The word you will sell yourselves has a different meaning from the word you will be sold, right? It means you will attempt to sell your own selves, both men and women. However, none will buy you, right? God had previously commanded that this covenant be enacted in the plans of Moshe, right? So here we see again the same meaning, that you will offer yourselves, right? You will sell yourselves. And it's a different meaning than you will be sold, right? It's not like you were already sold, but that you will display yourself, or and no one will buy you. No one, not that no one will purchase you back or buy you back or redeem you, but no one will buy you or no one will purchase you, right? So you're still in captivity. You're captive in bondage. No one would buy you, right? Let's see Targum on Kelos, right? Let's see what he says, right? Let's see here. It starts here. And the Lord will cause thee to return to Mizraim in ships, right? So it's a literal place, not a state of being. By the way of which I spake with thee, thou shalt see it no more. And there shall you be offered for sale, right? He makes it more clear, right? Targum on Kelos. You shall be offered for sale. So you shall be displayed as merchandise for bondmen and bondwomen, but none shall buy you, right? So as you can see, this is clear, man. This is so clear, you know, and it's really easy to destroy the BHI argument on, you know, oh, it's past tense. You were sold already, and no one will buy you back. No, dude, it is you're already captive. You've been taken captive. You are being displayed as a slave, because you will be sold as bondmen and bondswomen. So you're probably in chains, and people were passing by and no one would buy you, or you were being bought with little, very cheap, or there were so many that nobody would buy you anymore, right? So as you can see, this is easily to exegete historically, not just biblically, but historically, right? And according to the Targums and these Hebrews, Jewish commentators and writers, they all agree, man. So that's pretty much it. Doesn't take much. This verse is easily explained. So please use this, brothers and sisters, man. Build upon it, strengthen it, spread it, and I hope it was of profit to you, man. We gotta keep praying for these people. Keep up with your studies, and well, that's it, man. May the love and peace and grace of Christ be upon you and yours. Until next time, my brethren. Until next time, and remember, it's not against flesh and blood, man. It's not against flesh and blood. Peace.
I keep my Bible on me for protection. Sitting about to learn a lesson. The demons keep on flexing. They ain't about to block my blessing. May God's will be done. Thy kingdom come. My nickname is Earth, cause I revolve around the sun. Dirty devil keep on trying, for my flesh is steadily dying. I'm feeling holy like Zion. Strike the devil out, no divine. I'm like swing, better swing. Santiago do it for the king. Something like the prodigal son. Give me my sandal robe and rain. I've been locked up, no pain. Broke every chain, it ain't no thing. I put that rock in that sling to take down giants, shall me. I give up my life just to give it the God. I don't follow, man, I'm a shadow for the Lord. This one of these, but it really is hard. I worship Jesus and I'm taking the charge. I worship and get to the dead and the die. Just give me the power to see through your eyes. Discerning no proof of this in the disguise. Like Solomon, Lord, I just want to be wise. I've been persecuted, executed. Kingdom music, we the truth, we rebuke and hold it. Ground Messiah music, listen to me, don't be foolish.
Somebody got this Bible on me. I ain't seeking no title, homie. I don't care about the fame, I do not care if I go viral, homie. I ain't got no side woman, I got this wedding ring on. Tell me what you gon' do when you face the judge and everything gone, yeah.